What are your tips for the best strategies to actually get broker contracts and get in with brokers?
A lot of these now brokers tell you to go online and fill out that provider form, and then they'll look at it when they need somebody. It's not true. It's just got to sit there, right?
Welcome back to NEMT Experts. I've got Dominic Bono with me, who is the Director of Business Development at Onward, which is an up-and-coming broker in the NEMT space. Dominic, you and I met at the NEMT conference a few years ago, and you have a decade and a half of experience in this industry. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Quickly give us like a handful of names of like some of the big broker companies that you've worked for, including your current one.
Yeah, so I've never actually worked with the big ones. I've worked with and partnered with like a Motive Care, MTM, Access to Care before MTM purchased them. Those kind of the big ones that I've worked with. Obviously, I've worked for Allevi, which is down in Florida, which they concentrate more on that Florida piece. And then I work for Onward Rides right now. And so Onward is a TNC, Transportation Network Company.
Dominic, I want to get a little more into the minds of transportation providers now. So a lot of folks starting up their NEMT business or trying to grow it, they'll try to get more ride volume. And sometimes that means going to more healthcare facilities and marketing their businesses. Sometimes that means trying to get in with brokers in their area. Mm-hmm. From your wealth of experience working with a number of different kinds of brokers across the industry, what are your tips for the best strategies to actually get broker contracts and get in with brokers?
Yeah, I think you got to do a lot of research. They're just not going to, if there is a need for a broker to reach out to providers, that's one thing. But mostly because a lot of these NEMT brokers are using a lot of rideshare, a lot of Uber and Lyft. There's usually in a contract, right? For a Medicaid contract, you're looking probably 80% Uber and Lyft or ambulatory versus the 20-25% wheelchair. So I think a lot of these NEMT brokers know that, and so that's why they kind of not pay as high for wheelchairs because of that particular reason. But again, doing a lot of research, obviously MTM has now acquired Access to Care, so now they've got Access to Care contracts, and so it's really just kind of doing a lot of research, figuring out where each NEMT broker lies, and contacting them and just asking, hey, do you need another provider in this area? And if so, we would love to talk to you, and here's the services that we offer. Knowing who to talk to is one thing as well. A lot of these now brokers tell you to go online and fill out that provider form, and then they'll look at it when they need somebody. It's not true. It's just got to sit there, right? You got to pick up the phone and you got to talk to somebody. You got to figure out who to talk to.
So that is the key piece here, because, I hear that, from brokers as well, fill out the online form. How do you actually figure out who you need to talk to get in with a broker?
Correct. And, back in the day, a lot of these brokers had a lot of networking, building people going out and actually visiting providers in local areas that they needed help in. Today, it's all automated, right? And again, it's kind of like, hey, fill that sheet out, and if we need you, we'll call you. If not, you can check back within 6 months and we'll revisit it. But again, it's getting to know the provider relations managers at each location, in each state, and then just kind of wiggling your way in and just trying to figure out who I need to talk to.
It almost sounds the same way as winning a contract directly with a facility. Like, you can go to a facility, and if you find some random person, yeah, I'll take your card. If we need to, have a need, we'll call you. But no, you got to go in there and find who at that healthcare facility actually manages the transportation, meet them, build a relationship, do, something beyond just the, hey, here I am.
Correct. Correct. Like to this day, I still have friends and still have relationships in these nursing facilities in Nashville that I haven't walked into in many, many, many years, to the point that they still call me for resources, right? Who can we use for transportation? Who can we use for home health? Who could we use for DME? And so it's kind of, again, building those relationships. And I go out and play golf with these guys sometimes too. But we were so close, back in the day, because not only was I in there kind of building relationships with the administrator and the social worker, I was building relationships with the activities director. I was in there talking to the business office manager. I was talking to, even just sitting around talking to residents and getting to know them.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's what business still is, despite the amount of tech and fill out a form and, whatever. It's all about relationship building at the end of the day, if you really want to get somewhere.
Correct.
Let's say there's an NEMT business. They find out, okay, at this broker, forget the online form. Here's the person I need to talk to. They go, they meet with that person. Like, what's the best way of pitching to actually get in with the broker then, even if you find the right person?
Yeah. That's a great question. It's the first question that's going to come out of their mouths is, how many resources do you have? How many vehicles do you have? What location are you in? So let's just take the state of Georgia, right? So
Broker
has the state of Georgia as a contract. And so they're going to come in and it's like, well, we're going to need help in these locations. Do you have vehicles in these locations? What kind of software are you using? Because they really want to push their own software. And so just having those conversations, having to figure out, like, what's their no-show rate? That's one of the biggest things, because they're not going to pay for a no-show. So you got to kind of figure out 5, 10, 15% of their rides are going to be no-show because they're Medicaid. So there's a lot of things to take into thought about, hey.
And Dominic, what is the vehicle count that you kind of need to tell someone like broker so that they'll actually be like, okay, maybe it's worth contracting with this NEMT business?
Yeah, they're not going to do anything with probably people less than 10 vehicles in a certain area, because they're trying to push out a lot of trips quickly, right? And they want to get them fulfilled. I think the other thing is they don't want to have people send trips back, because that's a red flag on broker. And then if their fulfillment is not reached at a certain SLA or KPI that is in the contract, then they'll start hitting liquid damages. So now brokers are going to get charged penalties for not fulfilling those rides, right? So I think they're not going to do anything.
Like, if you're trying to get in with a broker and they ask how many vehicles, you got to say 10.
Yeah, I would at least a minimum of 10.
Okay. And then it's like you're saying, 15%, even more percent of their ride volume that they give you are going to be no-shows, right? So when the broker comes to you and says, okay, you have 10 vehicles, like, we have a need in this area, like, I assume broker is going to first give you their rates and say, hey, this is what we can pay you, right?
Correct.
Now, if you were in the shoes of a transportation provider, right, you came to broker 10 vehicles, they give you these rates, what would you do?
I would think about it long and hard. And obviously, if you're just starting out, you want to start building a foundation. You want to start building a pyramid, right? So you have to have some kind of anchor contract in order for you to start out and start being more visible in the market, right? Because broker is going to give you, 50, 60 trips a day. And again, that's good. That's a good foundation. So you start building your visibility. You start building your relationship with broker, and then you start building your driver pool. And so if you're doing 50 or 60 rides and they're in the local location and they're doing between 5 and 10 miles, that's not that bad. And again, you start building up. And so once you start going out, talking to nursing facilities, talking to hospital systems, talking to dialysis clinics, and you can get more of a high-paying trip for revenue, then you can start dialing back on the stuff that you're getting from the NEMT brokers. And again, you kind of, building, that pyramid.
So let's say you start doing work with a broker, right? And forget how you got up to 10 vehicles, but let's just say most of your volume, near the start of your NEMT business is from a broker.
Mhm.
How do you leverage that to then get into private pay contracts with facilities, which are obviously going to be higher paying rates?
Yeah, because again, I think you have more visibility, right? And some of these NEMT brokers are doing some trips out of these facilities, because these folks that are coming out of the hospital need to go to a nursing facility for either rehab or even skilled nursing. They're on the Medicaid piece, they're that Medicaid insurance, right? So if a nursing facility wants to set up a transportation request for one of their patients who is on this Medicaid insurance, then they have to actually go through
Broker
or any NEMT broker, book it with them, and then
broker
or an NEMT broker would turn around and give it to one of the providers that they have in the network, right? And so again, if you're able to, and you're not able to see that, before everything, right? I mean, it's just a random ride, and that gets you into that facility. Now, the way that I used to do it is because it got me into that facility, I was able to take some brochures, I was able to take some marketing material, leave it at the nurse's desk, some pens. Pens went a long way. Notepads. I mean, everything, right? And then I had an opportunity to go back into that nursing facility and follow up and say, hey, we took Mr. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so out. I just want to let you know who we are and what we do. And then that we were able to build that relationship again and get the private pay or the contracted facility pay versus what we were getting with the NEMT broker.
Right, because the healthcare facility, I mean, there are rides that need to be done for that facility that are paid for by a Medicaid broker, but the same facility will also be paying out of pocket for other kinds of rides.
Correct.
And so you get into that facility through a broker, and then you build relationships with the people at the facility and say, hey, your private pay rides, like, I'm already doing work with you because, I work with this broker. Let me handle your other ride volume.
Correct.
Have you seen a lot of NEMT businesses successfully pull off that playbook?
Me personally, I have not really seen a lot of providers doing that because I don't think they know that little hint, that little piece that they could do. It was successful for me because I kind of figured out I'm in that facility. Why don't I do marketing while I'm in that facility? And why don't I talk to people? Because of my marketing and sales background, I think because you are sending your own drivers in, and the drivers are more concentrating on getting that patient in and out of that facility and not really stopping and kind of talking to the nursing and going back in and following up. I don't know if a lot of the managers or directors for the providers do that. I mean, that it helped me tremendously.
You just got to think outside the box, go the extra mile, hustle through the work. The opportunity's there.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Dominic. I get a lot of transportation businesses, NEMT business. They come to me and say, hey, we want to get started with broker work just to get our wheels moving, to start doing trips. And then we're going to expand into trying to get private pay work with facilities and whatnot. Yeah. Right? Now, what are your thoughts on this? Because, sometimes what I see is people just get so involved in doing broker work that ties up their time, and then they're not able to make time to go and win those private pay contracts. Like, what is your sort of advice based on what you've seen with NEMT businesses that get in with the broker and how that goes for them? Yeah,
I think as an owner of a provider, you really got to watch your P&L, right? And you got to watch, what the market is doing. Like, if I know there's a certain wheelchair company out there who's getting a certain amount of rates, and I know usually it's higher than what an NEMT broker is going to pay. It's knowing your market, really, right? It's knowing, hey, I can walk in there and get some private pay for this amount of money. A lot of people I don't know if they don't have the drive or they don't they just want to sit back and get rides, right? And you can sit there and get rides all day long through the portal. You can get rides, from 50 to 60 to 70, 80 rides per day, right? But you gotta look at your P&L.
Yeah.
You gotta say, if I'm doing this ride at this level, but if I can go out and do private rates for this level and be more efficient and not have maybe all this overhead, right? So instead of having 20 vehicles, maybe I have like 10 vehicles who are doing a higher rate, lower miles on the vehicles, and your P&L will look a lot better than what you're doing here. So it's just knowing the market and knowing what is your budget and what's your revenue goals.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's get to this piece of it. So let's say you're doing broker work, right? You built up your business, you're large, and you want to move into doing those private pay contracts. But let's say you're working with a broker, they're sending you X volume of trips, so many trips every day, and you feel like you need to accept all those trips, because if you start rejecting a certain number of broker trips, they may not be happy with that, and they may take away the volume of rides that you actually do want to do, right? Like
Yep.
if you start rejecting 20% of the trips, then
Yep.
they'll stop giving you the other 80%, right?
Yep.
How do you sort of walk that fine line of rejecting broker trips more and more, but still being able to do some, as you want to make a transition to doing non-broker work?
Yeah, that's a tough question, right? Because you still want the vehicles moving. You still have to pay all the insurance and pay the drivers and your payroll and all that stuff. You just kind of you need to have those open communications with these folks that you're working with over the NEMT brokers. Usually, because you sign a contract with them, you usually kind of figure out who you need to talk to. And so I mean, it's just having those conversations like, hey, I've only got 8 vehicles now instead of 10. Is it okay for me to dial back a little bit on the trips that you guys are sending over? And usually they're pretty good, like, because they want to fulfill those rides and they don't want you kicking them back. And they have other providers in the network already that they'll start giving those rides to. So that's one way, but you're also going to make sure that you do have that contract signed with that nursing facility or that hospital system that you're getting private pay out of. And then just dialing back. If you have open communications and you're honest with these folks, they know it's a business, right? And so they're just not going to cut you off high and dry. They're going to be like, okay, so Dom only can do 20 trips now instead of 30. No big deal. We'll just give them these 20. And so again, having those relationships with the NEMT brokers is a big thing.
Yeah. So what I'm getting is, don't just reject trips in the portal and that's it. You got to talk with your broker representative or whoever it is. It's the same way you got in with the broker is the same way you got to dial things down with the brokers, communicate with the people there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Have respect, right? I mean, you guys were business owners and they're business owners, and they're not looking to hurt anybody. And again, open communications is a big thing. Run, baby, run.
Awesome.